How far does the U.S. Constitution go to protect genuine respect for others? Having studied and gone deeper into Neil Strauss's rich story of free speech and what everybody needs to know, I feel as if I'm educated enough to speak on these topics of both the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution, genuine respect for others, and just the Constitution as a whole. I feel like I'm a pro at this by now. The world is ever changing, and we must be aware of any and all ways that we might disrespect someone, and we'll get into that later. Hate speech will be, or let's put it this way, we'll be answering 3 questions today. Hate speech, or explain why the First Amendment may protect hate speech, speech that causes emotional distress, and based on the information you have read thus far in Chapter 5, would the First Amendment protect someone who refuses to use a person's preferred pronouns? So, let's get into this. The preview points, hate speech will be protected if it doesn't victimize a person or property. Emotional stress will also be protected as long as there is, once again, no physical harm towards a specific person or property, similar to hate speech. And lastly, if someone chooses to use the wrong pronouns to someone who may prefer something else, they will also be protected by the First Amendment, but we'll explain that a little bit later on. So the main point, kind of just talking about why the First Amendment may protect hate speech, which is crazy. The First Amendment will only protect hate speech when it is not directly victimizing persons or property for discriminatory reasons. Now, the amendment will no longer protect someone committing a hate crime when the person does directly aim the hate towards a person or property. Strawson explained this on page 168. So, straight from the text, in addition to the multiple contexts in which First Amendment principles permit hate speech to be directly punished, it also may be indirectly punished when it constitutes evidence of a hate crime or bias crime. These terms refer to acts that are independently punishable as crimes, such that is independent of any associated expression, such as assaults or vandalism, when the perpetrators intentionally select to victimize persons or property or discriminatory reasons. Now the First Amendment will charge someone if they do that, but if they don't actually go out of their way to cause harm to a person, a property, a group of people, just a movement as a whole, if they go out there and instill harm, physical harm, then then they'll be pressed hard. But if they just say words, obviously they're just not a good person. And unfortunately, the court can't really do much about that. Yeah, that's just on the parents at that point. Main number 2, kind of just talking about why the First Amendment may protect emotional distress. I kind of link this with hate crime a little bit, because it kind of just, hate crime causes emotional distress to those who are targeted. But since the late 19th century, American courts have recognized that certain conduct, including expressive conduct, to institute the tort of intentional infliction of emotional distress. Emotional distress can definitely find itself similar to hate speech, as I said before, as they both cause displeasure to the people or audience that the hate targets. Strawson goes into why the First Amendment may protect those who may cause emotional distress to others on page 201. So flipping on to 201 real quick. The targeted speech is inevitably elastic in scope and accordingly is prescribed in duly vague terms which the government could wield against disfavored ideas. As the court observed, the concept of outrageousness, which is central to the IED tort, is a highly malleable standard with an inherent subjectiveness about it which would allow a jury to impose liability on the basis of their dislike of a particular expression. So, kind of along the lines of hate speech, once again, it causes physical harm to those. If someone gets upset about something, they can't go to court and be like, hey, they yada yada yada, they said this about me. Unfortunately, you cannot do that. Yet. Who knows where the society will go. And this is more just an answer off the top of the head. Based off the readings through Chapter 5, the First Amendment would protect those, or they would protect those who choose not to respect those who prefer different pronouns. This is due to limited harm, depending on the subject, that the disrespectful person would cause. It would not hold up in a court due to the basic right to the amendment, and there is no physical harm in play. It is just a matter of the person being disrespectful. Now, if this person were to physically assault and call them by the wrong pronouns, then it would be a different story. So overall, it's just a matter of someone not being aware of the pronouns. It's being someone who wasn't raised to respect someone who may identify as something else. And if you take that to court, then obviously the guy will be like, I wasn't aware, I'm sorry, and then that'll be that. So conclusion, overall hate speech and emotional distress will be protected by the First Amendment as long as there are specific people or properties being targeted or not being targeted, and someone goes through with instilling harm, and the First Amendment will protect those who choose not to use the correct pronouns when talking to someone due to the lack of education, respect, or overall decency. So kind of just to wrap it all up as a whole, it really does just come down to respect. Whether the First Amendment supports it or not, we all must respect others and do what we can to protect those with a small voice.